In this video, I want to have a look at frequency tables, histograms, and polygons. So frequency tables first. Frequency tables are used to organize data that we've collected. So they show the number of times that each of the scores has occurred. So it's a really nice way for us to get our raw data and organize it so it's a bit easier to interpret. A frequency histogram is a column graph, but it's got a couple of special features. So all of the columns must be touching and they all have to be the same width. There's a half a column gap at the start before the first column, and both of the axes need to be labelled and they need to have valid scales on them. So the scales have to be going up by the same amount each time. A frequency polygon is drawn over the top of a frequency histogram, and it's a special type of line graph. So it joins the top middle of each of the columns with a straight line, and it also joins onto the axes on either side, so right at the start and at the end as well. So let's have a look at drawing one of each of those things. So in our example, it says 20 people were surveyed about the number of cars in their household, and the results are shown below. We're asked to complete a frequency table, then a histogram, and then a polygon. So in our table, we need to know the number of cars. So the smallest number of cars is 0 and the highest is 4. So our numbers down the side here are going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to go through and we're going to tally the data that we have. So you need to be systematic about this. A lot of people try to jump straight to the frequency by just going through and counting, for example, how many zeros there are, but it's very easy to make mistakes like that. So you're better off going through and going, okay, I've got a 2 and a 1, so I'm going to put a tally mark in the 2 and the 1. I've got a 2, so there's a tally mark at the 2, a 1, so a tally mark at the 1, and go through and do it really systematically. So 1 and 1, so 2 more tally marks in the 1s, 2 more 2s, a 0 and a 2, so 1 in the 0s, and because it's my 5th one in the 2s, I'll put a diagonal line across. I've got a 3 and a 0, a 2 and a 3, a 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 1, and a 4 and a 2. So now that I've got my tally marks, I can count them up to write in my frequency column. So I've got 2 zeros, I had 7 1s, I had 8 2s, 2 3s, and 1 4. And then it's always a good idea to have the total at the bottom and just count and check that you have the right number of scores so you know that all your data's gone in there. So that would give me 20. And if I count all these, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 as well. So I know I've got all the data in there. So that's my table done. Now over here, we're going to draw our histogram and our polygon. So we'll draw our histogram first, and we've got the scores written along the bottom. So our 0 column is going to go between here and here. So it's got a frequency of 2. So that means our 0 column is going to come up to the 2s along here. I'm going to use my ruler because that wasn't very straight. So that's my 0 column in my frequency histogram. My 1 column has to come up to a frequency of 7. My 2 column needs to come up, it had a frequency of 8, so it's coming up here. The score of 3 had a frequency of 2, so it's back down here again. And the score of 4 had a frequency of 1. Alright, so that there is our frequency histogram. So just to point out those important features again, is that each of the columns is touching the next one along. And there's this gap here that's half as wide as each of the columns, and there's a gap at the end as well. And my axes are both labelled, and all the scales up here are evenly spaced. Alright, so that's our histogram done. Then I'm going to grab a different coloured pen to do my polygon. So your polygon always starts down in the bottom corner here, and it goes up to the middle of the column, then to the middle of the next column, all the way along, and then half a column out, it comes back down to the axis. So we're going to join each of those dots together with a straight line. Alright, so in blue there is our frequency histogram, and in red is our frequency polygon. So that's having a look at how we can draw tables, histograms, and polygons from a data set.